Alright, so let me go over. I'm going to go over the tools that you're going to need to do the shock absorbers, to install these shock absorbers. You're going to need something to take the wheels off, obviously, like a 21. I'm using an impact gun here. You can use a lug wrench or whatever you got. You're going to need like a full socket set, metric socket set. You're going to need, you're going to need these too. You need spring compressors. These are Harbor Freight ones. They're El Cheapo spring compressors, but they should do the job just fine. Probably cost me like 20 bucks or something. It helps to, you need a torque wrench. You gotta have a torque wrench. You gotta have, anti-seize is nice to have. Some extensions, like a bunch of sockets. Namely, you need like a 10, 12, 14, 17, and like a 19 and 21 for the lug nuts. So, and a torque wrench, and maybe some pry bars or screwdrivers and stuff to help you get the interior parts out. And that's pretty much it. And wrenches too. Wrenches are good to have. Where are they? Right here. So it's good to have a full set of wrenches. And then a jack and a jack stand. And that's pretty much it. That's all you need. Yeah. Compressor is helpful. Compressor with a impact gun will come in really handy. I'll probably set that aside here. I may need it. I have my electric one there, but if that one don't cut the mustard, this one will. This is called the Earthquake, according to Harbor Freight tools. And this is a badass impact gun. That thing will take anything out. Pretty much almost anything. Not everything, but. So alright, those are the tools you need. Sorry I don't have it all nicely laid out. Okay, so on 1010 of your Chilton's, that's not a Chilton's, this is Haynes. This is a Haynes manual. It tells you how to take to remove the shock absorbers and coil springs, removal, inspection, and installation. So you can bet if you do this, you're wanting to replace them, not just inspect them. It's a 2009 and earlier model. So right now, this is a first gen Prius. This is a second gen. Jeez, there's so many different models in this book. That's why I don't like these. Anyway, so 2004 to 2009. That would be that's the second gen Prius. So remove the rear seat back framework. See chapter 11. Remove the right side trim panel. The luggage tie down, 2 bolts and 8 clips. Okay. Unclip 3 retainers and remove the battery cooling duct. Okay, so I gotta get to that part. So I'm still doing 8 and 9. Rear seat back. Do I really have to take the? Do I have to take the back seats out? The rear seat backs? I really don't want to. It looks like. Oh yes. Okay. Before you do any kind of, before I get the car, or do any kind of suspension work on the car, I think you might want to put a wheel chock, especially if you're on a sloped driveway like I am. Alright, actually I have 2 wheel chocks, so not that one, but this one right here. So about at this point, when the car looks like this, then we can start getting worked on the suspension, right? Because you can actually see the shocks now. See, they're in there. So now it's time to do the suspension work. So like I had to take out all of this, just to get to those bolts right there on the side. Yeah, so good times. That's why I'm gonna charge you a lot for this. And that's why I chose to do it myself. So let's go look at the manual real quick. Alright, so now we've removed the rear seat back framework. I don't know what that means. Remove the rear side trim panel. The rear side trim panel. Okay, we did that. Unclip the 3 retainers and the cooling duct. Okay. So I removed the high voltage battery reinforcements. Okay, those are those metal plates up here. Put a jack under the center of the rear axle support. Rear axle. Rear axle. Oh. Okay. Well. Okay. So like I said, I've gone through the manual, and now we're at the point where it's time to do the thing, to actually get to the dirty part. So first, what I'm gonna do is put the car on some jack stands. So let me go and do that. Alright, so I got my handy jack here. Poor guy just sits out here all day. I finally get to use him. I've had this jack for more than like 10 years now, and it hasn't disappointed me yet. Maybe it will today, I don't know. Okay, so you can see there that there's a little thing to jack it up on. See that little support? This is where you actually jack it up on. So it says you have to actually support the axle or something. But anyway, let's get this thing off the ground. Make sure you got chocks over there too. Try to get it kind of high. And give yourself like a 2 inches, 3 inches, like that. Okay. Go grab some jack stands. Okay, so I got the jack stand here, and I'm gonna go put it somewhere. Well, we can't put it under the shock now, can we? We're just gonna have to use the place where you put the jack on. Oh, okay, so it's not high enough yet. Yeah, jack it up enough where you can get it a little bit higher. Back of this car really isn't that heavy, even with that monster battery in there. Yeah. Let's go ahead and put it on there. So I did about 3 teeth on this 2-ton jacks. Should be good enough. Alright. Right around here-ish. Go ahead and lower it. Ooh! Okay, don't lower it that suddenly. It looks like it's pretty stable. Yeah, so just give it a little shake. Yeah. Just give it a little tug on each side to make sure it's stable. Alright, it's time to do some suspension work. So now I kind of like working on suspension. It's easy. That's why. It's easy, sort of. So first thing we got to do is take the wheels off the car. For that, I have my handy DeWalt impact gun here with a 21mm. Let's go ahead and let's do one side. Just loosen them. Doesn't really matter what oil you do it in, but just do a little star. Okay, so I don't have to do this with 2 hands. Yeah, if you don't have an impact driver like this and you plan to do a lot of suspension work, this is a great tool. This is probably my most prized, most used tool here. Alright. There it is. Wheel comes off. It's pretty light. Stock Toyota wheel. Whoosh, just nails in it and everything. Still holds there. It's okay. Well, there's another nail right there. Good times. And there it is. There's the shock absorber. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the other side off now. Okay, so what it's saying in the book to do next is to support the axle. I think they mean the arm, the little swing arm dealy. But with the yeah. So I'm just using the jack because you should have jack stands holding your car up now, right? Supposedly. And so I got it underneath the shock absorber right now, and then you got to undo 3 bolts on the top. Excuse me, 2 nuts and 1 bolt. So it's kind of tricky here. I'll show you on the left side here. So see this one, and then this one over here. Those are your 2 nuts. This looks like a nut, but it's not a nut. It's a bolt. It's a nut that's been like welded onto there. And you got to take that one out right here. You know, it's tricky, right? Sneaky Toyota. And then you got to take out this big. It looks like a. I think that's a nut. It looks like a nut. It looks like a 19 or something. So here we go. Take one side out. Okay, so the bottom one is a 19 millimeter nut. Should just come right off. Okay, it's a little difficult there, but so it's like a giant flange to nut. 19 takes it off, and then it should I don't know what else. There's a big washer over here, so let's go like that, and it should be ready to come off almost. So now what you got to do is okay, so it's kind of hard to see on the right side, but it should be, there's a nut right there. Got too many extensions. Should be another one right here. Okay, I need something stronger. That's not wanting to come out because they're probably using too many extensions. So what I need to do is use the earthquake. Okay, so it's because I got too many extensions on. That's the problem. I'm losing too much power using this thing. So yeah. You know what you can do? Maybe I don't need to use the earthquake. Maybe I just need to use the breaker bar. Alright, so I have this wonderful tool called the breaker bar, or it's also known as a cheater bar. And what you can do with it is you can loosen the bolt first before. Let's see if I can do it with one hand. I'm fairly certain I can do it with 2 hands. I may mess up the bolt. Oh, it's in there. It's in there pretty good. I don't know what the torque is on this thing. Ah, there we go. Just enough to break it loose a little bit. Okay. Oops. The thing is, it's a good thing that the battery has a cover shield. Okay, there we go. So now it's loose. Now I can go get our impact gun and impact it. Off it goes. There we go, and I just saw the shock go down a little bit. So there's this washer, this nut, and this nut right there. Don't lose those. And it goes down. So I can probably loosen the jack a little bit and then lower even more. Alright, so now what you gotta do, so you're supposed to hold this and push it. Okay, and then it comes out. You kind of wiggle it out there. Sort of, kind of. Or maybe you have to push down on the arm first to get it lower. There we go. And off it is. There you go. It's pretty dummy proof. There's no way you can mess this up. Because it has 2 nuts and 2 bolts in there. It only has 3 bolts holding it up. So there it is. Just reverse shock. It doesn't appear to be leaking or anything. So I don't know. It's probably just weak. I'm fairly certain these are the stock ones because they look just like this. Yeah, they They look exactly like the Toyota ones. So that's probably the stock shock. I got 120,000 miles out of that, and it did a good job. That's all I could say. Alright. And then I do the other side. It's pretty much the same thing. Alright, so I got them both out. It was easy. I used the earthquake for the second one, and it didn't put up much of a fight. So it's alright. So I got the shocks here. There's the left one. That's the left one, and this is the right one. Like I said before, the rear shocks are interchangeable, so don't worry about mixing them up. I think. Let me take a look at this. Oh no, they're not interchangeable. They're okay. The rear shocks are not interchangeable. I mean, the shock absorber is interchangeable, but the actual hat part that mounts into them are specific to each side of the car. So so you just gotta remember, yeah, just make sure you don't mix them up. This is the left side, and then this one is the right side. Okay. So next part is to take the spring out. So what you need is some spring compressors, and I will go install them right now. So that's one spring compressor installed. So I am so lucky. I almost didn't have the right socket, so I couldn't use the impact gun to do it. But I found one, and it's a 3/4, I think. No, 15/16, almost an inch. Jeez, I don't know what that is in metric, but so just go ahead and put the other one on the other side. I would do it like opposites, I guess. It's a good idea to put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads here. I got my anti-seize here. I got so much anti-seize I feel like I should use it, so I will. Let's put some there. Just get the bolts nice and looped up. So I mean, you don't want that thing to seize. I've had one of these get messed up before. So what you want to do, I had the other one on there already, but I'll kind of show you how to put it on there. So you just do that, and then you just press it down all the way. Press it down all the way, and that's how much slack you need this is the slack that you need to take up. So you need to tighten it from there, and I'm going to do that with the impact gun. Pretty cool. These power tools are the best, man. Okay, and then all you have to do is just tighten it until the spring compresses. All right, so when you start tightening it, you'll notice that the spring becomes free like that. See, it's loose now. That means it's safe to take out. It won't like explode if you take it out. So there's the. What is this stuff on top here? Oh, okay, that's nice. That's convenient. There's a little Allen thing here, and then the thing to loosen it with. That's nice. So I would go ahead and see if you can take it out with the impact gun. Actually, probably. Well, I don't recommend to loosen it while it's under pressure. Okay, the top nut is a 17 millimeter. So. Let's see, got it between my legs here. Hopefully it won't spin and mess my legs up. But oh, there you go. So I didn't even need two wrenches or anything. Take it out. But yeah, if you didn't have an impact gun, what you'd probably do is you would get an Allen wrench, stick it in there, and then get a regular wrench. I would put the clothes in first, and then put the Allen wrench in, and then just loosen it with this, and then just like squeeze both of them. Comes right off. So it's very important when you do this. You take the parts out the way you take the parts out is the way you put it back in. So you have the nut, then this big washer, and then the actual hat, and then the bump stop assembly with the cover. So also you want to go ahead and inspect these parts carefully. I mean, just inspect it. One thing that will wear out are the bump stops. The bump stops are like, they're made out of like foam or something, and they'll deteriorate when they get old. But this looks okay, so I would just go ahead and reuse it. This looks okay. Look at all the rubber parts here. Look at the bolts, the studs. Make sure they're not broken or anything. Make sure nothing is stripped. And then there's your spring. So just go ahead and take your spring out carefully. Well, I know you don't. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna throw the shock away anyways. So, but what you want to make sure when you're installing it is you don't scratch the shaft. So I'm looking at the shock, and it looks fine. It looks fine. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's not leaking or anything. But when I drive it, it's dookie. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the nut on here. I'm gonna go push down on it and see what happens. Yeah, so yeah, they're not in horrible shape. They're not like completely blown, but you watch this. You can tell like there's like not enough gas or oil in there, so like it kind of just dive bombs, right? It's like a two-stage shock actually. Yeah, I've seen that before. So if you go slowly, it dampens at the same rate, right? So that's kind of interesting. But then if you have like a big bump of like a sudden compression, yeah, see, I can feel it like it'll kind of like it'll go really easy, and then it gets really hard at the top. So this is actually a good shock, but there's nothing wrong with it. But I know it's weak. Well, and we'll find out when we install it. 120,000 miles is a lot of miles for a shock. Most people replace them sooner than that, so I would say go ahead and just replace it. It's all right. So there's your old shock. Just take one of your new shocks. Like I said, they're interchangeable, so don't worry about which one goes where. Take a look at it, inspect it, get all this dust off the shaft here. Okay, so this has a new bolt, so you can go ahead and, I guess you can go ahead and keep the old one. Take this bolt off. Go ahead and put the spring onto this guy. Okay, and then it'll line up. Excuse me. So, oops, it'll line up right there is where you want it. So you see this little indent here is where you want the spring to be. Just go ahead and stand it up again, and then remember to order it when in, right? So what you want to do, oh, my legs are getting all dirty now, great. Okay, so the first was the bump stop assembly and the cover. So that goes on. That helps keep dirt off of the shock shaft. Put that on there. Okay, and then this big washer. No. The hat goes next. See, I told you I already forgot. That's why you gotta remember. Okay, this hat assembly, and then the washer, and then your new nut. You know what I would do? I don't really know how much to torque this to. Put this on here. Okay, so now is the time for wrenches. No more power tools. You know what? You can go ahead and tighten it with this a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, so I know it's going to be kind of hard to see. I'll put it on my foot here so I don't mess up the top of the threads. But if you lift up the shock a little bit, you can see there. See where the end of the shock is? There's a little mark where it used to be. I think it's flat for the most part, but you try your best to get it back into where the same position it was in before you start tightening everything up. Alright. Okay, so this would be too hard to show you one-handed, but this is my tightening apparatus here. So what I realize is if you have but the way you do it like this, there's no way you can torque it. So but it's supposed to be 41 foot-pounds according to the book. 41 foot-pounds, and then it's 60 foot-pounds for the rest of the bolts and the nut. So yeah, that's why it was kind of hard to get them out. 60 is a lot of torque, sort of. It's not a lot torque, but it's a fair amount. So you just, all I can suggest is just tighten it as much as you can tighten it like this. Don't go super, don't go He-Man on it, but just tighten it as much as you can within reason, you know. And I forgot, like, hey, once all this is tightened and you still have the spring compressors on there, you can still rotate the spring and the hat and everything, so don't worry about the alignment quite yet. Just make sure this top nut is tight. Alright, so sometimes I even impress myself. So, like, I think you could torque it if you torque the shaft, I guess, onto the nut, if you had one of those socket dealies, kind of like this, sort of, but it's a socket for a wrench. But what you can do is tighten it as much as you can, then count how many threads from the top of the nut. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I count 4 threads. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it slides off. All right. So then go ahead and go to your other one. That is not tight yet. And this is the old one. And you just go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it slides off, right? So I'm pretty close to where I need to go. Maybe I just tighten it a little bit more, but I would feel comfortable with that. So that's one way you can check to make sure you got the right torque. Of course, you know, there's like rubber and stuff in here, and they might be compressed at different rates and stuff, but that's pretty close, I think. So that's the method I choose to use. Alright, so after you got the top nut bolted on, go ahead and line up all this stuff, all the spring and everything, with the hat and the bottom of the perch. Just go ahead and pick this guy up. Make sure it's lined up on the top here. The bottom one is easy. You can actually push on it. We'll see. And then go ahead and loosen your spring compressors, like each side slowly at a time, like just a little bit at a time each side, alternating. All right, well there it is. So I got ahead and I got the spring compressors out. I got it pretty close to where it was on the top. I'm gonna tell you now that when you use the spring compressors, it's gonna make the spring and the hat want to rotate. So just try your best to keep it in the same position. But yeah, there you go. Everything's in there, and plus your suspension's gonna be flopping around. Everything's gonna have to settle in after. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side, just like how I did this, and we'll be all good. And we'll go put it back on. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and install the shock real quick. This one back onto the car, and then that'll be it for this side. And then I'll just do the other side. So remember that. Oh, look at this. That's right. This has to rotate. Okay, so remember that that the bolt, that bolt, and this stud were towards the back of the car. And then, so yeah, if you do line up the hat properly, like I said, it shouldn't be any problem, because look, it's already where the stud should be. So go ahead. This is probably where the jack will come in handy, because it'll hold the arm up for you. So let me just put this down. Demonstrate here. Apologize, it's kind of dark. So what you want to do is kind of guide. Oh, yeah, it's easily, you can see it pretty easily. I'll show you. It's pretty easy to see where it goes. The shock sits so low on the chassis. Sorry, yeah, it's kind of dark, but you can see where it goes. So you just guide it up in there, and there, and then you just have to get this part in there somehow. Maybe I won't even need to use it. There we go. So you kind of have to bend the shaft a little bit. Hopefully you don't bend the shaft too much. And then then get it up there. Yeah. And then go ahead and put the bolts back in. Okay, so I'm just realizing this is where the jack comes in handy. So you take your jack and you jack up the arm, and just make sure it lines up while it's going in. See that? So just make sure it lines up and then push it up in there. Boom. Boom. Perfect. If you don't have anything to hold it up from the bottom, it's just going to flop down and you're never going to be able to tighten it. Unless you use this to tighten it, but then this will be the only thing holding it up. I mean, I guess you can put that in now. Alright. I'll go ahead and put some anti-seize on this since it's exposed to the elements, sort of, kind of. And then, yeah, there it is. So you just put them in. Alright, I got the bolts up in there. You just want to go ahead and tighten it. But don't tighten it too much, because we still got to torque it. Right, over torque it. It's sliding back there. Okay. So you know it's tight and it's not going to fall. It's not going to droop down when you let the jack go. Let's go do this one here. And then go ahead and let the torque off on this. I didn't get it all the way on the stud. I can't anymore because the jack is touching it. So I don't really move at all. And then I want to make sure you get that in there properly. You might have to hit it with a hammer or something. Just tug on it until it's flat. Oh, there's nowhere to grab it. That's the problem. Might be able to push it in with the nut. Alright, I'm gonna try to use the nut to get it in. So next time, make sure it goes in all the way. Okay. So yeah. So this next time, for me, a reminder for me, next time on the other side, I should make sure that this is in there properly. It should be all the way so the stud is sticking out. It was only like partially. So now put the washer back in, put the nut back in. So I use the nut to drive it in, but it is kind of like twisting the shock a little bit, but the shaft, it rotates. So I'm sure after you drive it enough, it'll rotate properly, you know. So just go ahead and tighten this. Oops. And torque it down to 60 foot-pounds. Okay, before I go ahead and torque that, I'm gonna go ahead and put some anti-seize on it, so it won't be hard to get off next time. If you live in some place where there's like snow or something that will make the undercarriage of your car corrode, I would highly suggest you put anti-seize on everything. Let's go ahead and put this back in. Okay, so yeah, so I finished the other side. It was pretty fast since I wasn't videoing and or vlogging, and yeah, I did a lot better on this side. This side was a lot easier. So like you learn, you know. But so what I did is I put anti-seize on the whole stud here and the threads, and then I made sure to pound it in with the hammer before I put it up in there, so it wouldn't torque itself. Like I said, it'll probably all align itself eventually, you know, but I don't know, you kind of risk bending the shaft or something. The shafts are pretty skinny, you know. But yeah, so there it is, it's done. So before I put the back together, actually I might just take this for a little test spin before I put all this stuff back in, because if there's anything wrong with it, you gotta take all this junk out again. So I would say go ahead, at least, well, put the batteries, the battery support brackets in and the cooling system back together, and I would just take it for a drive like this. And well, before I start putting stuff together, before I call it that's it for the rear, I'm gonna take this ducting out for the cooling fan, and I'm gonna go ahead and clean it. It's not uber dirty, but I stuck my finger in there. Watch this. You want to make sure this thing. You want to make sure there's no dirt. There's not much dirt in here. See, it's dirty. So all that, there's no filter on this. So all that dust that goes in there goes into this little turbo blower thing that cools the battery. And if this gets gummed up with dust and stuff, your battery will die, because its purpose is to keep the hybrid battery cool when it gets hot. So yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that ducting out, and maybe I will take the ducting out, and I'll probably blow the turbo here with the hose. I will get like a wipe or something. Try to wipe as much dust out. And then that's it. Okay, so now that you've got all the goodies installed, now that you've got all the suspension components installed, I mean, you can go ahead and put the wheels back on, and you are done. So if you can see there, I have my little lifting coil booster mod. Go ahead and check my video out on that if you want to hear some info on that. But I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'm going to go put the wheels back on the car. And then, yeah. So go ahead and put the wheels back on the car, and then you can go ahead and lower. You can go ahead and lower the car with the jack. I'm going to take it off the jack and jack stands, and go ahead and torque the lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. There you go. All right, here's what we got. Wheels are on there, torqued to 80 foot-pounds. I was able to do it with the parking brake on there, so my parking brake is pretty strong. Yeah, so just go ahead and jack it up, take the jack stands off, and go ahead and lower it. And then what needs to happen is you need to start putting the interior back together the opposite of how you did it before. And I'm not going to go over that. I already went over taking it apart. Putting it back together is pretty self-explanatory. Just make sure you got all the bolts and the stuff where they were before. I mean, just first you want to start with the support brackets, the ones that go on the sides there, and then bolt the seats back on, and then put the covers on. Oh yeah, and then you want to put, actually after you put the support bracket on, you want to take the put the cooling duct back here. Very important, very important. You put that cooling duct back, because that's what cools down your battery. So yeah, that's one thing I want to double check, make sure you do, is to put the duct back. This guy, this black thing here. Make sure you put this back after you put the it goes like that. After you put the bracket back in, make sure you put this duct back in. It has these little make sure you got the pins. I put the pins somewhere. I think they're over there. Alright. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just put the car back together, and then take it for a little test drive, and then do the other side, and that'll be another video. So there you go, rear suspension done. HadesOmega out. I hope this helped some people out. Alright, so here's why I told you to go ahead and take the seats out. I mean, take the bolts out of the seat and push them forward, is so I can do this. And they're in there pretty much all the way already. But you just get your hand in there and just tighten it, and then just get a wrench and tighten it. So there you go. So that's what I suggest you do, and all you have to do is just slide this back and then line up the holes. This one has a little tang on it too. So that's a little hint tip for when you're putting this thing back together.